Troy,
Yeah.
come over here. I think we're live.
Oh, ow, my goodness. Oh, my old age.
Oh, your age, Troy. All right. This is what it looks like right now. I'm new to this, streaming live on the YouTubes.
Hi there, YouTube.
So let me start like we start. So hello again, and welcome to the Comics Online podcast, season 18, episode 4. I'm your host Kevin Gaussoin. With me today, as usual, is my co-host Troy David Phillips, who you will know from Flashback Comics.
Live long and prosper.
Today, live long and prosper. We're talking Star Trek Discovery.
Yes,
Troy.
we are. Now, I have watched the entire first season.
Yeah.
And I have watched the After Trek show, the After show.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed this series. Now, Kevin has not necessarily enjoyed the entire series. He had reservations about the series that I did not share. So we're going to offer our opinions, counter-opinions. As per usual, my opinion is the correct one.
Forgive my tapping here. Season 18, episode 4, Star Trek Discovery. All right.
All right. Where are our faces?
Oh, they're on the other thing. Yeah, we're on the other app. There's the app. Look,
Okay.
there they are.
Yeah, hey, check that out. Okay, so there we are. So we can see what we actually look like. Ordinarily, this is the posture that I assume to watch Star Trek Discovery.
All right.
Generally, I have a blanket over my legs.
Do you need a blanket, old man?
And a cat curled up in my lap.
We don't allow cats in this house. Well, we're about to allow some on the other side. I'm renting out the other side to some ladies with cats. Some cat ladies, if you will.
Yeah, they're not crazy, though.
No, probably not the Simpsons style. Although, this is, we are broadcasting from Stupid Sexy Flanders, so enjoy that.
So Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah. So it started out. Bring us up to speed as to where that started and what you heard. What you heard to begin with, Troy.
Okay, so in the very, very beginning,
Yeah.
and actually before I go too far, let me get my hot beverage.
Oh,
Yes,
that's a good idea.
Oh, my holy.
Now, personally, I heard that what's her name? What's Burnham's name?
Michael Burnham?
Yeah.
Sonequa?
Martin Green from The Walking Dead. She's gonna get a new show, and obviously they're killing her off in Walking Dead. They kill everybody off eventually.
Rick is still with us.
Rick is still with us.
Michonne is still with us.
Michonne is still with us.
Last time I checked, Daryl Dixon was very much with us.
Yep. Anyway, but eventually they'll probably all die.
Oh, and there's some zombies. They're probably,
sort of still with us.
I don't think they've killed every zombie from season 1. I think some of those walkers might still be with us.
Probably so. But anyway, we've got Sonequa Martin Green, who had a fabulous exit, kind of a sad exit. I wish, obviously it being as though they were going to move her over to another show. Maybe you can see my eyes better this way. Being as though they were moving her over to another show, it was good. They had to make her go out some way, so she went out a hero. Did you? Are you?
I'm not that far caught up.
Okay.
I'm
anyway,
so behind with Walking Dead.
So spoilers on something from like a year ago ish, maybe even longer than that. Yeah, she goes out like a hero and takes a good strong bite toward Negan, but ultimately fails. In any case, but she bought everybody some time and she saved the day as her zombie self. Arg. That's somebody else's thing entirely. That's Star Trek though, right? Isn't it?
No.
That's the other Star Trek. Anyway, so I was thinking, so from the beginning, I'm thinking, okay, when it comes to Star Trek Discovery, what does this, which universe does this exist in? Is this, the original standard, prime Star Trek universe? Is it, or is it the J.J. Abrams verse, which kind of cuts off of the original at some point?
We call that the Kelvin timeline.
The Kelvin timeline. Which universe, or is it something else entirely? Which, is it A, B, or C? And I'm still not certain. They keep saying, "Oh no, it's original universe. It is. So we promise."
Well,
and I'm like, but look at those Klingons. They look like neither the human-looking Klingons nor the next-gen Klingons. So why?
Well, because
why?
Because lots of reasons. Okay.
We still don't know why.
Well, first,
I've learned to ignore it.
Let's assume let's go back to original series into Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Yeah.
Okay. So the original series gave us the Klingons, that looked as they looked, kind of like Mongol warriors, really.
Yeah.
But they shared many humanoid characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
In Star Trek: The Motion Picture, we had a much more exotic-looking Klingon, and why? Because we have money. We have feature film money for makeup.
Sure.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's the sole reason. We have money for makeup. We could redesign the looks of a lot of the exotic aliens
mm-hmm.
and actually not have budgetary constraints.
Right.
That's why.
And okay, I'm fine with both of those things.
So now going into Star Trek: The Next Generation, we see a furtherance, if you will, of those of the Star Trek: The Motion Picture. I affectionately refer to this as STAMP. Star Trek: The Motion Picture. STAMP. The STAMP Klingons persist, if you will, into the Next Generation, and that look persists through that series and Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Voyager. In Star Trek Enterprise, which goes back to the first voyage, the maiden voyage of the Enterprise, we are given an in-story explanation for the physical deviation from Klingons that we're familiar with from the feature films and Next Generation, and why some Klingons, the Klingons that we saw in the original series, why they look so different.
And this was not the maiden voyage of 1701. This was NX-01, the prototype Warp 5 starship.
Right. And where everything in Enterprise was, dial it back to the beginning.
Yeah.
This is us getting.
And they look like they were in a submarine. I've only recently watched Enterprise from beginning to end, and I have to say, Carl Madsen. Shout out to Carl Madsen, who was one of our podcasters from early seasons. He was like, "No, Enterprise. That's my jam. That's the best one. He said I love." Original series, because he's in his 50s, and he's like, I love original series, but, of anything else, Enterprise is the one that I love, and now that I've seen it, I'm like, I understand, because it was so very realistic, so very believable as to, how we get from current day, through First Contact era,
right?
And then into and then the up into that original series. Now we've got Star Trek Discovery, and the hardest thing to grasp for me, so we've got two things. We've got Klingons. Why are they a third different style?
Well, I'm going to come back to that, but go ahead and finish your other points.
And then the other point is the their ships are so much more technically advanced, so much more beautiful, and I mean, I don't know how you do it. How do you get from spaceship submarine to wow, whiz bang, like crazily advanced, way more advanced than Enterprise D and E, and then from there to dials and switches of the Kirk and Spock Enterprise.
Well, again, the Kirk Spock Enterprise, the
and still be
series,
within the same universe, though.
Well, the original series, it is what it is, and there is no real story explanation. It's simply the constraints of the budget that they had to work with, the technology
of course.
television making, filmmaking that they had at that time.
Yeah.
There is obviously a passage of time from the original series to Star Trek the Motion Picture, but Star Trek the Motion Picture, Stamp, has a leap forward in terms of look, uniforms, technology, etc. But it is the same universe, it's just some years have gone by. Star Trek Discovery takes place during the time that Captain Pike would have been captain of the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Now, Captain Pike's era, the Cage,
Right.
that looked...
So that's original series, season 1, episode 0.
Right. And so, as we see at the conclusion of season 1, the Discovery is nose to nose with the Enterprise, Captain Pike.
Spoilers.
So, I'm assuming at this point that you guys have actually seen that. And if not, I apologize. We have not actually seen inside the Enterprise. We simply see the exterior of the Enterprise, and we know that Captain Pike is captain. We have to assume that number 1, Una, is her unofficial name. Majel Barrett's first character in The Cage.
It would be really cool if we got to see those characters, including that proto Spock.
And there's some question which the show writers in the After Trek show were very ambiguous about whether or not we will see Spock interacting. I think there's going to be some in-story explanation of how it is that through the entire original series, Spock doesn't mention his sister, his adopted sister.
Yeah.
But to be fair to those points...
That's easily enough dodged, I would imagine.
Well, let me finish. To address that point, it was well into the series before Spock lets his best friend, his good friend and captain know that, oh, by the way, my father is a high muckety-muck ambassador with the Vulcan Science Academy. And then again, think about how long it was before we knew that Spock had a half-brother, that he had his half-brother from Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, the emotional Vulcan.
Oh, right.
Spock has a history of keeping certain things close to his vest. All Vulcans do. Vulcans don't like to talk about the Pong Far. Vulcans just don't share a lot. And in this case, Spock doesn't share facts that aren't relevant. It's not relevant that he has a sister in Starfleet, and so it never comes up. It's not relevant that he has a half-brother, and so it never comes up. He doesn't mention his father until it's about to become relevant. So how is it that Spock never mentioned his sister? Because it never came up. And that is historical Spock, so I'm going to swallow that one. In terms of the Klingons, I look at the different makeup style of the Klingons, and again, this is where makeup has gone farther, where the show has a budget. Because it's on the streaming service, the show actually has a budget to extrapolate and improve on these things in whatever ways it does. So I'm going to go with this. Here on planet Earth today, Scandinavians, Asians, Africans, Pacific Islanders, they don't all look alike. They really don't. We're all humans, but we don't all look like each other. I mean, look at Kevin and me. However, we are only divided by
we both have hair.
Well, we do both have hair, but look at that fabulous hair he's sporting there. Yeah, right? So, but here on planet Earth, that's just us divided by a continent here and a continent there.
Yeah.
Imagine how physically different. It's like looking at the Klingons.
Yeah,
Some of these Klingons are Scandinavian Klingons. Some of these Klingons are Asian Klingons.
Yeah.
Some of these Klingons are Pacific Islander Klingons. And they're scattered over a much larger piece of their galaxy.
And you know what? I wish they would have just said something, just dropped some little thing and had a Klingon with hair, as one of the people who came, as one of the 24 houses. That there was a Klingon with hair. Fine. Then the rest of it, whatever. Then it's just like, oh, this is just a racial difference. You know, and the bald Klingons are just, you know, those are the whatever, um, and that's fine. But just to be like, nope, this is how we are. We're not going to tell you why. That's frustrating to me. Just give, even if it's a cheap explanation, like just super, you know, oh, here's some dude in the background. He's got hair. Who are the rest of these guys? You know, we'll get to that later. We're not even going to talk about that now. But in the meantime, we can have Troy's explanation.
Yeah, and again, you know, to go back to my original point, it's just like the difference between original series and stamp. Just the reason is we have money. We're not going to give you an in-story explanation. It's just, this is what Klingons actually look like. But likewise, too, there were Betelgeuseians, there were Regalians, there were other aliens.
What do the Betelgeuseians look like?
We'll have to go back and watch Stamp again. Okay. But if you look at the panoply of aliens that were reintroduced in Stamp, a lot of that makeup was just huge over what the original series had been. And again, the original series was constrained by money. There were more exotic...
Well, of course.
There were more exotic aliens in Star Trek, the animated series, which, you know, aired sometime after the original series was done. Many people considered that to be year 4 of the Enterprise missions.
Yeah.
And we had aliens there because we weren't restricted by makeup budget, so we could just have the cartoon aliens in the cartoon show.
Yeah.
And there we go. In terms of any other special effecty thing, I am generally willing to accept some improvement over special effects, miniature models, practical models, what have you, than you know, from one series to another when any amount of time passes by. The Discovery itself, the actual ship, the Discovery, does look technologically more advanced, but then they have the spore drive. The spore drive that we don't mention in any other series, so obviously something happens, and we're not there yet, that keeps the spore drive from being used in all Federation ships. We're like, okay, this for some reason isn't working out, and we're going to stop using it. And you could see them starting to slowly move away from the spore drive. You know, Stamets isn't plugging himself in as frequently, which is not to say that he isn't still, but we're going to see, I think, an in-story explanation for why we don't see the spore drive in original series or Next Generation or Deep Space Nine. Or, you know, I mean, imagine that spore drive would have been instrumental. It would have been a huge help to Voyager when Voyager found itself in the Delta
Quadrant, and just be like, okay, we're just going to go home now.
We need to backtrack the mycelial network, fire up the spore drive, and let's jump. We are way far from home here.
Right.
And obviously we don't.
And the same thing in that first episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, where they go to Farpoint, and then they get thrown, and then they get thrown into the, was it Delta Quadrant then? By Q. Q throws them someplace very far away, and they're like, I don't know how to get home.
Yeah, there are a couple of episodes along that line, but that is definitely one of them. And certainly, we needed that episode to showcase Q's mischievous nature and incredible power. And so, you know, we did that.
Yeah.
There are people who say that Farpoint is a example of strength and weakness in the storytelling of Next Generation, but that its storytelling power improved tremendously as the series went on.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the Farpoint episode myself, but I also didn't see it when it originally aired. I saw it after the fact and not in proper sequence.
Yeah.
I think this Discovery, it's different from a lot of Star Trek narratives. It has started much more sequential, much less of an episodic nature than other
that
Treks.
is a big difference.
They went right into some long game story arcing, and I feel like that gave the show a unique voice in comparison to the original series, to Next Generation, to Deep Space Nine. And I loved all of those things. Deep Space Nine is one of my favorites, actually.
Yeah?
If the Federation were real, and I were a member of the Federation, I almost think I would prefer to be stationed on a station like DS9 than to be on the Enterprise or the Excelsior, traveling around. It'd be great to see other parts of the galaxy, but I wouldn't want that to be my 5-year mission. I'd actually like the stability of waking up every morning and looking, oh, okay, there's the wormhole, there are the Bajorans, there are the Cardassians, I know what's going on here. I'm going to work my shift, clock out at the end of the day, go down to Quark's bar, knock back a couple of synth ales, then go to my quarters and go to sleep, and then get up in the morning and check and make sure that the wormhole is still there, check and make sure the Bajorans are still there. But there are other people, probably Kevin here, who would like to jump on the Enterprise and travel around the whole Alpha Quadrant, eventually the Beta Quadrant, and so on.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
That's your thing. You're a traveling man. Me, I like stability.
Well, and that's the thing. I would enjoy. I would certainly like the exploration. I wouldn't want to be on Voyager. Then again, if you're working for Janeway, I'm in. Then whatever. Then I'll do the 30-year trip home.
See, I can't help but feel that if the Enterprise had been in the Voyager situation, that Picard would have turned to Geordi LaForge and Data and Will Crusher, and he'd have been like, "Hey, cyborg guy, android, smart kid, I want back in the Alpha Quadrant before my Earl Grey gets cool," and make it so. Number one, Commander Riker would have shouted some orders. He's like, "All right, you heard the captain, let's go," and we'd have been back home at the conclusion of a 1-hour episode.
You might not
Data
be too
would have
far
run
off.
some numbers, and Geordi and Will Wheaton would have put something on the warp drive, and boom, bang, we'd have had that happen.
Yeah.
This is the Enterprise that traveled back into the past and ensured first contact, and then returned to the future. So if you can travel through time, you should be able to navigate galactic distances.
Yeah. It is really far, though. It is so far.
Yeah, you know what else is really far? Hundreds of years in the past.
True.
So yeah, like I said, with Discovery, I'm totally down with that. With the manner in which they're telling their stories, the characters that they're developing, the major characters, obviously Michael Burnham and Ensign Tilly, who, spoiler alert, Ensign Tilly gets a promotion.
To Ensign.
With Cadet Tilly, I'm sorry, gets a promotion. And also Lieutenant Stamets, he gets a promotion too. I like Commander Saru. I like the Admiral.
I didn't really like the Admiral. But you're not really supposed to like her or agree with her. Pretty much ever. She's
in a pretty tough situation, and she's had some tough situations thrown at her, and I feel like she's managing as best she can, and she's keeping her ears open. Even when she's not in complete agreement, Burnham lays out her side of the argument, and the Admiral's like, "Okay, how can we make this work? I may not be completely into this, but I'm going to back your play. Yeah, how do we make this work? What do we do?" And they do that, and I like that. I like how that's working out.
Yeah.
Again, I like I like Saru. I like a lot of things with the interplay of the characters. I am liking a lot of these things. Ash Tyler, the conflicts within that character, and I think Tyler will help bring about some of the answers to some of your Klingon questions. Obviously, the Klingons have done a lot of work in terms of genetic realignment, kind of doing that Klingon to human transfer thing. I kind of feel like they have an arm of science, and they're ruthless enough to pursue science in a completely unethical way, and take it to some logical or illogical conclusions. Just do things that a more enlightened people, like Vulcans, wouldn't do this. They're very science and logic minded, but this is wrong, and they wouldn't do it. The Klingons do. that's
Yeah.
Kevin's waving his phone around. It's making me nervous.
Oh no. I was sharing our stuff. I was sharing this that we're doing live now, and so this is our first time doing it live on the using the third party software, and this is kind of interesting. I don't know if this is exactly how it will look in the future, but this is the sort of thing that we will try to do both for this show and then also at Troy's store on the Tuesday night thing where we do our top 5. If you haven't already, check out our top 5s on Facebook, on Comics Online, and on Flashback Comics.
Flashback Comics, yes. By the way, and I was thinking of this because we were addressing different Trekkie points.
Yeah.
So with the difference in, obviously there's a difference in uniforms. These uniforms are somewhere in between Enterprise style uniforms and original series. Not even the original series per se, but
it seems so much more advanced, though, don't you think?
Well, but then again, I jump to original series movie. I go to Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and I look at those uniforms, what they tried to come up with there, and then further into Wrath of Khan. I felt that the Wrath of Khan uniforms were a huge improvement over Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
I don't remember them being all that different, but it's been a while since I've seen those back to back.
Yeah. Look again at the kind of clean unitard look that the motion picture had versus the burgundy tops with the epaulets, and it's obviously much more of a two-piece uniform,
like a jacket and pants,
right.
which is how frankly the Next Generation era improved as well. But to get rid of the stupid unitard and that they were fussing with, let me sit down so I'm not hurting my nuts.
I'm pretty sure Dr. Crusher didn't have that problem.
Well, no, but I mean that was the how Riker steps over a chair to sit in it. That's how he avoids hurting his nuts, and then Picard holds down his shirt when he sits down, and that's how he avoids it.
These things, right? These things. So there are very good, solid ties, and if you watch Star Trek Discovery, I recommend watching the corresponding After Trek. Each episode is followed by Matt Mira, I believe his name is.
Myra. Matt Myra, previously of the what's it called? The Nerdist podcast, which I have been very envious. Possibly even jealous of their amazing success with that show. I mean, they went like 600 episodes and then recently stopped it. I don't understand why. I haven't listened to the new thing that I guess it just swapped over to ID10T, and it's maybe just Chris, or maybe it's the 3 guys, or maybe it's a corporate thing. But like all the old interviews are gone, and I'm like, what the fuck? I wasn't caught up, fuckers. By the way. Troy is, look at this. He's a gentleman. Look at him. I swear like a motherfucker.
So I'm trying to give Kevin a show that is safe for work, so that those of you who might be at the office checking this out,
well, but use headphones. Here's the thing. I don't care if I swear or not. And if you're at work and other people might hear it, use headphones because it's rude otherwise. Juan. What is your problem, Juan? Use some damn headphones.
So, but as I was saying with Trek, the After Trek show will give you a watch list, sort of a viewer watch list. So as you watch each episode, anything that is relevant from earlier Star Treks, like for example, the Tholian Web, which gives us insight into the mystery of the original Defiant. The Defiant that existed before the ship that Worf would command in Deep Space Nine and First Contact.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch the Mirror Mirror episode, that will give you some necessary insights, and they cite other Mirror episodes,
including the final season of Enterprise, where they go to the Mirror universe as well. And by the way, spoilers here. This is Comics Online, so if you haven't this is the first time you're listening to or watching the Comics Online podcast, we're sorry. But spoiler alert.
Whoop, 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 whoop. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
All hands to battle stations.
General quarters. Shields up.
Um,
Give me tactical.
yeah. So we are all about the spoilers. See, normally on the regular audio show that we've done for a long time, but I just kind of petered out on. I need to. Eventually, it'll come back. Eventually, but in the meantime, you've got this. So enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, if you have any comments, please do hit us up. If you're live with us right now, I don't know if there's anybody because I'm looking at the software rather than chat. Is anybody watching? Nobody's watching live, but that's okay. It's our first time. We'll get people doing it in the future. But those of you who are watching this later, comment us up. Don't worry about it being that you weren't here with us live. Hopefully we'll get on some sort of schedule, and we can. This can be like a show that you watch live and you can interact with because
maybe we can have some props and stuff.
Troy and I, we're some interactive motherfuckers. Let me tell you.
Yeah, well, let me tell you. So, so overall, I would say that this series, this one season, has pretty much moved through, I'd say, 3 major acts. Not story arcs, but sort of developmental acts. Like, Act 1, we're introducing people, we're introducing conflict, we're showing some things, and we're also giving some callbacks to the original series, and laying some groundwork for things to come. Then there's kind of a middle point where these characters have been introduced, and now they're forced to grow. They're forced to come to grips with situations, and then we resolve some situations. There is some evolution of the story. There is some resolution. And so here we are now. We have closed an act while simultaneously preparing to open up a major act when Season 2 begins. Like I said, we end on the note that we're nose to nose with the Enterprise. I kind of feel like this is one of the few times in this series where one Federation ship has been nose to nose with another Federation ship, and it's not because we're about to throw down. It's not because there's some hostile situation at work. Or at least I hope that's the case, because if Discovery thinks they can take on the Enterprise, no. No, the Enterprise is invincible.
Well, I mean, I hope there's no sort of conflict. Because, frankly, I want this show to get back to stand. I want it to go through its arc and do its thing, but get back to that point where, generally speaking, there's peace within our confederation, our United Federation of Planets.
Well, I kind of feel like there's always two parts to any major conflict, and I'll just use the word war at this point. There is winning the war, and then there is building and securing the peace. We have won a war with the Klingons. We have brought that war to a conclusion, but now we have to kind of secure that Cold War that existed through the original series, and heal the kinds of wounds, like, when we see Star Trek III, The Search for Spock.
Yeah.
Captain Kirk's feelings on the Klingons are pretty clear and pretty negative.
Yeah.
Not without reason.
Yeah.
But we see Captain Kirk move past that. It's not a clean move past. It's not an easy move past.
Right.
But he also grows, and you have Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country. Yeah. One of my favorite of the Star Trek films is The Undiscovered Country. Yes. Yeah. So good it is. So good.
Yeah.
It's so much an improvement over Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. That was not.
5 was not ready. I feel like, if they did, I mean, they had some interesting stuff, but if that would have gone through a few more rounds of rewrites, that could have been
writing out Spock's brother.
or at least, there needed to be a lot of changes in it for it to be palatable to everyone.
Why does God need a starship?
Right?
You know, like we haven't met other powerful alien beings.
Right.
It's like, so this one claims to be God. How do all of these super powerful alien beings not trip over each other?
No kidding.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, who mourns Adonis? Remember that episode from the original series?
Which one was that?
That's the one with the one that claimed to be Apollo, I believe.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one, yeah.
And how did that guy not meet Trelane, the Squire of Gaussoin?
Yeah.
Who had parents that were even more powerful than he was. And then in the novels, I believe, they tied Trelane and his parents to the Q continuum. That Trelane was an immature Q.
Okay.
Oh, where do all these super powerful godlike beings come from?
Apparently, in those cases, they're parents.
I guess.
So, well, okay, so... Well, one thing to mention, you know, you're bringing up original series stuff. One of the things that I enjoyed most about the final about the season finale of Discovery is that we got one of the we've got an original series actor back rejoining us again, and that is to say Clint Howard, who played on the original series. What was the character's name?
Yeah, I don't remember.
The creepy little kid who was, you know...
Oh, good Lord. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have imagined... let me consult my pad. Yeah, but anyway, Clint Howard, who was not only in original series, but also came back in at least one other series prior to Discovery.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if that was Next Gen or DS9.
Yeah,
I remembered his I remembered his name in the credits.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Let's see, and here he was. Whoops. Plugged in. Here he was in the original series. Trying not to get shiny. Oh, you can't really see it. Anyway, he was the little emperor kid.
Why can't I remember the name of that episode? And the Corbinite maneuver.
The Corbinite maneuver.
Corbinite maneuver. I can't talk. This coffee is wiping me out here. I think Kevin might have slipped me an adult beverage into my coffee.
No, I would not do that to you, Troy. Well, I mean, I would if you asked me to. I got some adult beverages I can help you out with. But anyway, and Clint Howard was also played a Ferengi.
Next Gen or DS9?
Enterprise. He played a Ferengi in Enterprise.
Oh wow!
I did not recall that, but I must have. With Ethan Phillips, who you will remember as what do you call?
Neelix.
Neelix. There you go. Creepy Orion. that was his character in Star Trek Discovery. I have really enjoyed this. Here's the thing. I started out pissed, frankly. We start out, not only do we have these crazy alien, and for a space show that is replete with aliens on the reg. We have these totally alien versions of characters that in the past have been quite common. But we've got this vastly more technologically advanced ship, and frankly, if they would have just said, "This is a different universe," just shut up. It's a different universe. It's a different, it's another Star Trek universe. Then fine, I'll shut up. Then you just do whatever you want.
But it isn't, and it was always intended to be part of the time continuum.
Yeah, I want to see how they. I want to see how they sew this all together. And I would prefer that they did each of these things sooner than later. Now, one of the things that I thought might happen, being as though we were getting to the point, so Discovery goes to the mirror universe, and then they get back, and the United Federation of Planets has been just wrecked. There's like, the Klingons have attacked and are just trying to destroy every outpost of the Federation, and we're just like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And I can see that, okay, so here we are, being very advanced technologically, in the Discovery era, and maybe this war is what slaps the Federation back to the original series age of technology. They just got them so ruined that they're not as good as they once were. And some would say that some historians will tell you that Earth has experienced this in the past. Hey, we had some civilizations, whether they're the Egyptians or Phoenicians or whomever, that were really, or the Romans, were really advanced, and then some sort of terrible wars or something.
War, famine, plague, social social disorder,
or most probably a combination of many of these things.
Of all of those things.
Yeah.
Zombie apocalypse,
whatever it is, and then so then society gets crashed down, and then we return to a less advanced technological level. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe this is why we go from Discovery that is jumping around places to, maybe that's the reason in the end.
Well, again, the Discovery has this very experimental technology. Remember, when the show begins, there were 2 ships that were experimenting with this, and the second ship experienced that disaster.
Yeah.
And a lot of their technology was lost.
Yeah.
A lot of their data was lost. They were attacked by Klingons. The Klingons were, also killed by the tardigrade. We capture the tardigrade, get it back on the Discovery. But remember, at that point, that Stamets was saying how they had only experienced these limited successes on Discovery, and it wasn't until the capture of the tardigrade and a lot of what, Burnham reaching to the creature and trying things that otherwise, they were torturing that animal. And Burnham found a way to reach the creature without torturing it.
Yeah.
And obviously, that says a lot about Lorca, who is in fact native to the Mirror Universe, and has a very much an ends justifies my means. My ends justify whatever means. And even Stamets was like, when Burnham came onto the crew, he said, "Well, if Lorca wants you here, then your desires are less than moot." That's Lorca is all about business and all about what he wants. And like he said, he's been given a certain latitude to play fast and loose with things. So he could take Burnham out of prison and make her a specialist to put her on the crew and give her a place, give her something to do. And here we are. And now the story is evolving. In terms of other, we still have handheld phasers, which are still functioning very much like original series phasers.
Yeah.
Less like the Kelvin timeline phasers, with their switch around nozzles.
Is that what those do?
Yeah, they go from blue to red. So when you switch from stun to kill, like the nozzle turns.
Oh.
The beam interface point turns.
I didn't. I don't think I ever noticed that.
We have warp technology. When we're not jumping from point to point, we're still talking, in terms of warp factor, whatever. And there is a practical limit as to how fast warp technology will get us anywhere.
Yeah.
We still have shields that, it's like we have the technology. The thing that is truly different, besides the fact that Discovery has this technology that isn't on all of the other ships, what's the precedent for this? Well, remember the Excelsior from Star Trek 3. The Excelsior has this new trans-warp engine that isn't on any of the other ships, and Scotty is able to sabotage the trans-warp before they go anywhere. And then, do we ever see that trans-warp technology anywhere else?
Voyager. Just saying. I mean, there's a whole episode about it.
Right, right. But I mean, and what I'm saying though is, in Star Trek 4, Star Trek 5, Star Trek 6, we see the Excelsior in Star Trek 6, but is that transwarp technology on the rest of the Federation ships? Are the Vulcans using it? Are the Andorians using it? I mean, where is it? So there's a bit of a precedent for this super advanced thing not being all the way around.
Yeah.
The visual trappings aside, and I always come back to the visual trappings. Again, that's just the difference of, having more money to spend on, on practical effects, and also in the evolution.
Well, in your storytelling, I feel like, hey, I want a. If there's not a reason to change it, if I've got more money is not a reason to do a complete change. It's a reason to do a refinement, but it's not a reason to do a complete change. If you're going to completely change the way an alien race looks, where their weaponry is vastly different, where their culture is slightly different, then I mean, fine, okay, but let's have an explanation, please, because otherwise you've got. I mean, I know I'm not the only fan who's just like, okay, that's fine. You've told a great story. I mean, I started out, kind of pissed off about the whole thing just because, it was so very different from any other Star Trek series ever. But then it was like those people who stuck with it, myself included, because I did stick with it, even though I was frustrated. Those people like me who were frustrated from the beginning almost got a better payoff than those people like you who were fine with it, to where I was just like, why am I even watching this anymore? I just want to watch what's the Seth
the Orville.
The Orville. I just want to watch more Orville. Just give me more Orville. I'm frustrated with this discovery.
You bring up the Orville, and I'm just going to go down this tangent really, really quickly, because I've had this conversation with several other people who watch the Orville, and I sort of just tried to gently course correct those conversations and say, well, look, Seth MacFarlane's Orville, I mean, like you say, it may be an homage to Star Trek, but it isn't Star Trek. It doesn't have to be anything other than what it is, which is the first season, I'm assuming, of an original idea. That original idea may be a respectful nod or even a respectful comedic nod. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a parody of the Marvel Universe, but a respectful one. With the Foot and with Stick and etc. Well, the Orville is all of that, but what the Orville is not is a Star Trek show. So it can be what it is. It doesn't have to be anything else. Any Star Trek show has to be something, unless we're talking about the Kelvin universe, in which case J.J. Abrams can take a complete deviation. That series, actually, now that we're on 3 films, I'm going to call it a series.
Sure.
That series of films bothered me more than Star Trek Discovery because it was a huge deviation.
Oh, and I felt like that was a huge deviation, but we got an explanation from day one.
An explanation that I didn't agree with. I guess part of my problem there, it wasn't so much that I didn't get an explanation. No, I got one. I just didn't agree with it. I didn't feel that there was a need for it.
Well, you gave me an explanation, and I didn't agree with your explanation.
Well, but see, in your case, you were simply wrong.
Oh, all right.
But now Star Trek, the first of the Kelvin universe. Star Trek, not Into Darkness. God, what did they call the first one? In any event, I didn't.
I think it was just called Star Trek.
I didn't like the explanation that we have. The Romulans have traveled through time and altered the timeline and yada yada yada. And it's so many things were different. And we wrecked the Vulcan homeworld, and there's 2 Spocks in the same timeline. And then Star Trek, the second one, Into Darkness, that was essentially a remake of The Wrath of Khan. I'm like, well, look, you've broken new ground. You've set yourself up to be able to go somewhere new and different. And what do? You bring in Khan and you remake Wrath of Khan. But
that was a bad idea. That was a bad idea. If they would have skipped that, or made it, or somehow were able to make it better than the original Wrath of Khan, then okay, fine, whatever. But they didn't do either of those things.
On the third movie,
so
they found some legs. Star Trek Beyond was like, to hear Kirk say in the beginning, Captain's log, Stardate, whatever. We're in our fourth year mission. I'm like, yes, you have gone. The original Star Trek series was 3 seasons, so we say that was 3 of the 5 years of their 5-year mission.
Yeah.
Well, now we are moving into the 4th year. We are now moving into uncharted territory. We're going to show you the years that you didn't get to see because your beloved show got canceled after 3 seasons. I was doing a Star Trek timeline with somebody, and I said, remember, you had 3 seasons of the show. The show began in 1966, ended in 1969. Went into syndicated reruns. In the early 1970s, you had, I believe, a single season of Star Trek the Animated Series. But you didn't have another new Star Trek thing until Star Trek the Motion Picture in 1979. So if you went off the air in 69 and you came back at 7, you had 10 years with nothing but an animated series and conventions. The fan base coming to Star Trek conventions. That's what kept this alive. I mean, that's kind of staggering to think about.
Oh yeah, Clint Howard was Baylock in the Corbomite maneuver.
Yes.
And he was also in Past Tense Part 2 and DS9 Acquisition, a Season 1 episode of Star Trek Enterprise, and Will You Take My Hand, a Season 1 episode of Star Trek Discovery. Huh.
Yep. So there you have it. Like I said, the Kelvin series has some good points, not least of which is the strength of the actors. Carl Urban is fantastic.
Yeah.
Zachary Quinto. Whether he plays a hero or a villain, I remember him as Siler from Heroes.
Yeah.
A despicable guy that I didn't like very much, but I applaud his acting chops for making this despicable character that I didn't like very much.
Yeah.
He could have been a weak villain, but he wasn't. He was a strong villain. It happened to be that he occasionally got under my skin. Good acting. Chris Pine, etc. The whole, Zoe Saldana, just everybody.
They were all really strong.
I would just shout out the entire crew because they all have managed to capture essential elements of characters that they didn't create, but at the same time, they're not necessarily being those actors. Although Carl Urban is doing a fantastic job of channeling some DeForest Kelley. He's scary good.
Yeah, he is really good. Anyway, where I was going with this, with my tirade before, is I was frustrated from the beginning. I was seeing all this, and I'm like, this is not Star Trek because this, and this, and it doesn't have the same feel. And then, for me, somebody who was frustrated but still sticking with it, I feel like I got the bigger payoff because I got, they go to the mirror universe, and then the light goes off, and you're like, oh, this is why all of this craziness, and then more stuff. Oh, this is why. And suddenly you're like, wow, and then the stuff with the lack of technology, I'm like, oh, they're gonna lose this technology at some point. They didn't in season 1, but I have a feeling that at some point, if they really want to make this the Star Trek Prime universe that the original series took place in, which frankly I'm totally happy with them saying, JK, we're just gonna say this is its own universe and run with it. I'm happy with that because, obviously you can go and have this being a parallel universe where you've got all the same names, characters, and there's a ton of similarities, but it's not quite it. I am very happy if that's the case because then they can play fast and loose and do whatever they want. Then they can keep all this technology and, Enterprise and Enterprise A, B, C, D, E, etc. can be, all the more badass. And as we see at the end of our first season when they are nose to nose with the Enterprise 1701. This is not TOS 1701, and don't are you going to try to tell me that it is, because it's not. Then the cells are different.
Well, yeah, and again, some visual trappings aside, again, we've improved model making.
I understand, but if you want to make it in that same universe, then you've just told me that, oh well, this is way cooler. This is clearly higher, some higher end equipment. So just tell me it's a different universe, and then cool, let's rock on. Let's get on with the story. Well, instead of pretending, oh, it's the same universe. Well, why does it look all this different then? Don't tell me it's the same universe. Don't.
See, you're
pissing my hair and telling me that it's raining.
I don't have to go right now. But you're going back to you want.
I don't want that. I'm happy at just being a parallel universe. Good, move on.
So I don't want another parallel universe.
I'm fine. Let's do
want it's like, okay, so this is Captain Pike and this is the Enterprise that will eventually become the Cage. Why does it look different? Because model makers now are better than they were 50 years ago. Because the Enterprise of
tell that to Mr. Jeffries, who created those original sets.
And he had what he had to work with. That's like watching Star Wars, watching Rogue One versus watching Star Wars.
Those are way tighter to the original. They're slightly different, of course.
Well,
but they're so much tighter to the original.
When you look, they're also not as spread. They're not spread as far apart either.
Yeah.
What John Dykstra and what becomes Industrial Light and Magic, what they had to work with was much more limited, much more constrained. By the time you get to Rogue One, you're like, oh, we don't have to scour the gun shows for surplus World War II guns that we're going to put vacuum tubes on. We actually have money to make stuff brand new, and it's going to look a little more whiz-bang. We can, do things like, whatever. We can make ships look cooler, bigger. We can make the explosions larger. Look at the difference between Star Wars, the original, and Star Wars, the remastered. George Lucas was like, oh, I have money now. I can make Jabba the Hutt look like the big slug thing I want him to look like, instead of a somewhat rotund man in a fur-lined vest. I can make this explosion actually as big as I want, instead of what I can afford with my last $20,000. The difference of money making makes a difference in the visual whiz bang. But
then at some point, if you don't match these up, if these things don't match up, then I'm not buying it, and they might as well be a parallel universe.
But they do match up. And again, it's still warp drive. It doesn't matter how cool the ship looks. It's still warp drive powered by dilithium crystals, etc. The technology isn't better.
You're hurting my head, Troy.
The model making is better. The visual effect, the visual trapping.
But you could make it the exact same, like in an episode of whichever version went and did the Trouble with Tribbles. What was that? Deep Space Nine did a Tribbles episode where they met with TOS Enterprise, and they're like on the ship, and everything looked exactly right. They could do that now, but let's face it, they're not going to do that.
Well,
and that's fine, but don't tell me that it's the same, because it's not the same.
Well, see, I would like them to, recapture the look in terms of, all right, this is where the captain's chair is, and Mr. Spock's station is over here, and this is where helm control, and this is where tactical are. Put all those things in the right places. I don't expect to see cassette deck button flip switches. I'm like, okay, you know what? We don't need to have...
And I agree. I would prefer not to see them, frankly.
And I don't need it to be a parallel universe to explain that, the lights on this computer bank actually serve a purpose, instead of just simply lighting up randomly for no good reason. I don't need to make a whole parallel universe thing to explain that special effects, visual effects are better than they were 50 years. 50 years ago, nobody had any real idea how computers worked. 50 years ago, a lot of the things that they said, the technobabble, was even less plausible than it is now. 50 years ago, when you talked about a wormhole, what did the average viewing audience know about wormholes? The average viewing audience now is much, much smarter. They've at least read Scientific American and have some, the science of Star Trek is based in reality. And here's what the real theoretical work. The average viewing public is smarter than they were 55 years ago.
More informed when it comes to these sort of futurist terms.
Consider this. That TV series inspired people who are now, old enough to be working at NASA.
That is for damn sure.
The Star Trek, I will say, I feel that the original Star Trek series is a lot of why we have a Tesla orbiting.
Oh, that is so cool.
That is.
By the way, if you haven't already, watchers and listeners, check out the stuff that that SpaceX has done recently. They went and sent I would be surprised if you didn't know about this already, but they demoed their rocket to put things into space, either things into orbit or taking things to off to Mars or beyond. So they've got this great new rocket, right? And the boosters land themselves. Somebody doesn't have to go find them in a boat, a week later. No, they land themselves right next to where they took off from. And then their demo payload, they went and took a Tesla Roadster, the topless one, and they put a robot in the front seat with his arm hanging out, and he's driving. He's orbiting the sun now, and he I guess originally they were hoping that he was going to have a pass or two close to Mars. I mean, he'll be able to. The camera's on. When I say he, it's not a very functional robot, but it's got cameras on it. So the cameras will be able to see Mars, I guess, but unfortunately, I guess it won't be able to just go and crash land over Mars, because that would be cool. But I guess it's going to go around the sun a few times.
I'd started reading an article someone had written about the effect on the environment of launching this incredibly heavy thing, and how that was negatively impactful to Earth's atmosphere. Mm-hmm. So, if we're going to continue this, if this is going to be the new thing, the thing that replaces the space shuttle, I just hope that they improve that aspect of it so that it doesn't become negatively harmful.
Well, the thing is, we already shoot rockets all the time. For a while there, I was working at one of the locations where they shoot rockets. Not to get into my personal life, but I was working at one of these places, and the place shuts down when it's rocket shooting time. Let me tell you. Anyway, and this new Falcon Heavy that SpaceX developed, it's supposed to be like some small fraction, like a quarter or a tenth of the fuel that the closest competitor uses. Only it's got twice as much lift strength. So the payload can be twice as big for a quarter or a tenth, somewhere in there, I believe. So it's less impactful than it was before. And this stuff will improve, and we're going to be less and less. Once we get our science back. Sorry, world. America's screwing up right now, and Troy and I aren't in charge. Otherwise, we'd be like, no, hey, what are you doing? No such thing as clean coal. Let's get these coal people and let's start some training and some jobs in renewable energy, because there's no reason not to, aside from I've already got money invested in those mines.
Well, then venture capitalism.
Yeah, dude. Anyway, at some point we'll get back on track again and get back into renewable energy, and people like Elon Musk and his crew from SpaceX and Tesla that set of companies, are among those that are leading the way. That eventually we will catch back up to, as a society, and we will we will have renewable energy, and homes like mine. Hey, welcome to my home, Stupid Sexy Flanders.
I think it would actually be awesome if we could go ahead and get a colony set up on the planet Mars, and I would like to run the first comic book store on planet Mars.
I think you should.
I would so totally love to do that.
Dude, I didn't realize how fast. Now, I realize you got to go and do some laps and get things just perfect in order to actually land without fucking up. I mean, I imagine you could do a payload like, I'm just going to drop a rock on Mars, and you could get there.
Right.
But I didn't realize how fast, like, that rocket already, within like a day or something like that, already passed the orbit of Mars. And I was like, wow, for some reason I thought it was like, oh, it takes 4 months to get there or something like that. Nope, it's like a day. So that was thrilling.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of math, and I don't even pretend to be able to do all that.
I imagine there's all sorts of, in order to be going the right amount of slow when you get there, because otherwise if you're going fast, you're just going to burn shit up, and then you're going to have some pebbles. Oh, look, pebbles. That are burned.
So, it's like, you've got to time it just right from, our orbit to Mars orbit as we, coincide with each other, or when we're, at the faraway points, okay, launch now, and then Mars will move itself closer to me. Well, a planet is moving through space really freaking fast.
Really fast.
But you can't tell with the naked eye because it's all relative.
Yeah.
And so, this massively heavy spacecraft that doesn't have a living pilot, think of the difference here, too, is you're talking about automated craft, and maybe you're getting information in real time, but given the lag of time that it takes for information to get from that far back here.
At best, this is not Star Trek here. At best, we're talking light speed.
And we're not even at that point, light speed. Oh my God!
Well, I mean, but that's how fast radio transmissions go. I mean, there's going to be some amount of lag, but beyond that, but not a ton. It's going to be basically speed of light. That's what's transmitting, but your bandwidth is going to be tiny.
Right. So whereas like a human pilot, in anything, can course correct, adjust, because he can see what's happening and make those adjustments on the fly. Well, we don't have a human pilot on this one.
No.
So there's someone on Earth, who's...
Oh, and the reason, the reason, did you hear the reason that they aren't going to take a close pass is they just didn't care that much? They were just like, what we cared about was, our real... concerns were landing those boosters properly, because there's the two secondary boosters and that primary booster. That was their thing, and of course getting that distance on the payload. But as far as where the payload went after that, they weren't too exact on their math, and they didn't care about that.
Well, in terms of getting the booster to land,
did you see those?
I did not. I can't remember what was going on at the time, but I had some
It's amazing.
But, I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm pretty positive that everyone involved with any kind of takeoff and re-landing, we're going to do this again, they want to avoid any kind of tragic disasters. And I'm somewhat sensitive to the whole topic. My birthday coincides with the Challenger disaster.
All right.
The tragedy that was the Challenger. And so for something where, okay, we haven't been launching stuff for a little while now, but we're trying something new. Let's make sure that this part works, and so that when there are human lives at stake, there is much less of a risk because we've worked out the bugs.
How old were you, like 20?
I was exactly 20.
Okay.
1986, January 28th.
All right. I was in 8th grade.
This guy.
But I still feel like, that was a long, long time ago.
And then there, was the, was it the Endeavor? It was like 2003?
Oh, the other one that blew up, yeah. Forgot about that.
Yeah, it's like you...
I mean, they still have a, pretty good track record.
A good track record, yeah. Of course, it only takes one tragedy, and then you're like, oh, God, that's horrible.
Yeah.
For all of the other ones that were successful, but someone loses a family member and you just feel terrible about that. But in any event, I'm sure that they want to make certain that, okay, when we have human lives at risk, that all of these things are going to work. That, we've worked out the kinks, worked out the bugs. If this breaks down, we have a backup. We can prevent this disaster from happening again because we've worked it through. And we'll tackle it in stages and do it as many times as we need to until we get it right.
Yeah. So anyway, that's that. That's the SpaceX thing, and that's Discovery. So so Discovery was strong. Like I say, it started weird for me, but they built on that uneasiness and turned it into something, and they made it worthwhile. They really did, and so if you haven't watched Discovery yet, even though we've spoiled you on quite a few things here, I like Troy always says, strenuously recommend that you go and check it out yourself. It is it's a good show. Now, obviously, there's a bit of a problem with it being on CBS All Access, where I'm just like, I really don't care about watching other CBS shows. I want to watch Star Trek Discovery. I want to watch After Trek. I like Matt Myra. I hope he still has a podcast that I want to listen to.
Oh, you should reach out to him on the After Trek show. Use the Twitter thing, the hashtag.
Use the tweets.
Yeah. Tweet to the dude. Let him know you're a fan.
I like him. I always liked him on Nerdist, and honestly, I hope whatever their problem is with why they changed out of Nerdist, I hope they get that content back up again, because I really enjoyed it. I realized that they had so many episodes. Like when it was once a week, I listened to it absolutely always. When it went twice a week, I was like, well, most of the time, but sometimes not. And then when they started going to 3 times or more, I was like, no thanks. I'll just do it whenever I feel like it. And then that kind of pushed me away. But any of these hostful ones where it was not only Chris Hardwick but also Matt Myra and Jonah Ray, who you may know. Have you watched what's it called? The MST3K, the new version of MST3K?
No, I have not yet.
Did you used to watch it back in the day?
I watched a lot of old episodes of Mystery Science Theater. I don't think I realized in the beginning just how episodic the bumper segments were. Yeah. I would watch to see what old movie we were parodying without realizing that there was any kind of continuity amongst that crew.
That was me too. And because I've only watched maybe a dozen of the original ones, and then this new series, I watched. I don't know. I think I watched all of that first season. The funny thing is, and it has Jonah Ray from Nerdist, and it has Felicia Day from everything, and
always liked her.
She's great, man.
Yeah,
listen to
Eureka and
Eureka.
Warehouse 13. I feel like she made appearances on Warehouse 13.
She was in the last 2 seasons, yeah.
I tell you what, side tangent here, but since we brought it up, I do miss that universe, that Eureka, Warehouse 13, and Heroes. I'm sorry, not Heroes, Alphas.
Was Alphas in the same universe?
Alphas was in the Lindsay Wagner character, the doctor, that was involved with. Oh God!
I really liked Alphas. That was so sad that they didn't come back.
It was building into something. But yes, all 3 of those shows took place in the same universe. They didn't have any character common to all 3, but as Felicia Day tied Eureka to Warehouse 13, Lindsay Wagner's character tied Warehouse 13 to Alphas.
See, now I want to go and watch those again. So back in 2011, I got to on the same night. I hung out with it was Colin Ferguson, who from Eureka, the sheriff. It was his 39th birthday, and I got to hang out with him for like an hour and a half. And me and Matt from Comics Online were just shooting the shit with him and just drinking more and having a great time. And then Felicia Day showed up, and then also Siler was there at the same party.
Oh wow!
And also some hobbits were there. This was a crazy party, that was like one of the most exciting times of my life. Thank you, by the way. Shout out to Caleb. Caleb hooked us up with that party, so thank you very much again, and I will thank you forever because that was so fun. But anyway, I love those. Oh, and Caleb met what's her name, the younger chick from Warehouse 13. What was her name?
I don't remember.
But you know who I mean.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
How long's that show been off the air? I missed it.
I never watched the final. I don't know if it was a full season, but it might have been like a half season or something like that. I never watched the end, so maybe sometime soon I'll go back and watch the end of Warehouse 13.
We finished off both of those, and then and my wife and I, we had watched all of Alphas, and it was just so sad when it wasn't coming back.
Oh, no kidding!
And it was so much unresolved. There was so much.
I read something online about here's what it would have done.
Yeah,
it made me all the more sad.
I liked the one character. I mean, I liked several of the characters. But
Yeah.
I think my favorite character was Gary. The autistic one that read the radio signals, the electronic signals in the air.
Kader's what's his name? Joseph. The exchange student.
Yeah.
He reminds me of that actor who plays Gary.
Joseph is a little more personable.
Well, yeah. But I mean, in the face and just sometimes
maybe some of his mannerisms.
So yeah.
But I saw an interview with the actor, and he is so not like that character when he's interacting.
Right. Well, he was on Bones too, right?
I didn't watch Bones.
Oh, well, whenever you get around to it, you're in for a treat. That's a nice show.
I have seen episodes, and it was cool, and I'm like, I like it. I'm not necessarily into it, but...
well, let me just disappoint you right now, because I was disappointed when I moved out here. We're here in the D.C. area, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm going to go see these location shoots for Bones. No, all that shit is in L.A. God damn it. It's all in L.A. It's not really in D.C.
Because
they might have had some B-roll, but none of the actual locations are in Virginia, Maryland, and Washington D.C.
Oh, and I wanted to jump you back real quick to the point about CBS All Access.
What else do you watch on there?
Nothing. I have CBS All Access.
Look, it's worth it for now.
So
I'm gonna thank you for reminding me. I'm gonna cancel it and then I'm gonna re-up. I'm gonna cancel it though for a while.
So what I started to say was, by having the show on CBS All Access, for those of you who haven't thought this far through, I'm sure there are fans out there who are nerd raging. I don't even like using that word, but who are like just upset that it's on this streaming service. This is what gives the show some strength.
It's not that expensive, and here's the thing. Now that season 1 is over, Troy, this is a good selling point for now that season 1 is over. Now you can go in and just pay for a single, or I think it's like 7 days free. You can marathon that action in 7 days. No maybe. Just make sure you've got no other shows that you got to worry about. Boom, go and marathon that through for your free 7-day trial. I think there is. If there's not, then what are you gonna do? Cry to me. Cry right here in the chat. But you'll enjoy it, right? People will enjoy it.
Well, so in these simple terms, if this show were on regular CBS network, then it would be subject to advertisers' input. It would be subject to advertising dollars. It would be subject to the ratings game. The ratings game still plays an important role in determining whether or not a show succeeds or fails. So if this show were on Sunday night and had to compete with the Super Bowl, if it had to compete with some other show, if the ratings take a dip, this is where shows get their plugs pulled. By being on the streaming service, ratings don't matter. By being on the streaming service, it has a budget that is not dependent on advertising dollars, so you don't have to put up with commercials in the middle of your show. If you would like an analogy for this, these very same points are what killed Battlestar Galactica back in 1978. The original Lorne Greene, Richard Hatch, Dirk Benedict series, not the reimagined one that was on Sci-Fi, but the original series, which was on ABC. And each successive week, their budget got chopped. Their time slot got moved once. They were up against some tough competition. The ratings began to dip, and people wanted to pull the plug because it was an expensive show to produce, and the ratings weren't coming through. And this would have been, 1978, 1979. This is also the point in time when the video home recorder is beginning to become more popular. People are recording the show and watching it later because they can't watch it right now. I had a friend actually who, on his Betamax, he would record Galactica so that he could watch something else that was on at the same time, and then we would get together Monday after school and watch the previous night's Battlestar Galactica. We did it with Galactica 1980. We didn't know enough about ratings, so if enough people were doing that, ratings would take a dip. It's not that people aren't watching the show, it's that they're not watching it live.
And remember, a regular family doesn't matter. It's only those Nielsen families that actually matter. Nobody knows what you watch. I mean, unless you're streaming it, and then whoever's streaming it, they know, but they're generally not sharing it with the public. Probably not even their advertisers, much less the public.
Oh, Kevin, don't you know? They find out what the ratings are by asking Santa Claus, because Santa Claus sees what you're doing at all points in time. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake.
He sees you when you're falling asleep to. What shows do you fall asleep to, Troy?
Actually, I don't. If the television is on,
I fall asleep on a lot of things.
Once the TV is on, and it's dark, it's bright. There's things moving on the screen. The stimulation keeps me awake. Even when I have to be super tired, and the show has to be lots of talk drama with no action drama, no loud music changes, no fighting, no conflict. If it's, old school.
I thought you were the old man between us, Troy. I'm the guy who's just like, if anything has like a slow down, like, any of these shows that will have slow parts, give me a little slow part and out.
Yeah, well, and I think that I don't know if it's exactly the reason, but like there would be shows like I was watching Hell on Wheels for a while, and I didn't watch as much of it as I wanted to, time slots and timing and all, but we would be inside, it would be kind of dark, and two characters were talking, and I might be tired, I might be rubbing my eyes, and then the scene would change, it would be outside, and it would be bright, and a couple guys walking down the street, and somebody yells out something, and now I'm stimulated again because of the scene change. Same thing with Game of Thrones. We're in Westeros at one moment. We're over here at King's Landing, and Jaime Lannister is talking to somebody, and then we switch over, and now we're across the Narrow Sea, and Daenerys is getting her her ships ready to sail or whatever. We're at the wall. We're all the way up.
Very bright there with all the snow.
Yeah, with all the snow and everything, and so there's the Night's Watch in their black outfits against the white background. With all the scene changes.
If your eyes close like mine do, then you don't see any of that. And it's just the audio. If you leave the volume on too loud. Anyway, I could fall asleep to some shit. I almost fell asleep on your show the other day. I was having to eat more popcorn. Troy and I went to. That's why I ate so much of that damn popcorn. Troy and I went to see Mazinger Z Infinity. And that one, by the way, I wanted to say, you were talking about, sponsors. They were like hitting you over over the head with Harley Quinn's hammer that was emblazoned with Nissan. Nissan bought the shit out of that movie.
So, I will tell you, there are other animes, other animated feature films and long series. Series with longish episodes that I have seen. I don't know if these people actually put in product placement per se.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they must have to some degree. But
well, I mean, if you look, I mean, this has happened over the course of television, right, Troy? I mean, you used to have people who would just go and stop the show back in like the 50s. They would stop the show and be like, "Here, check out this soap," and shit like that. You know, and then if you look in the 90s, you had Mad About You had compact computers, and Apple was on Seinfeld.
Yeah, so I watched, for example, I'll give you for instance, I was watching this animated film, Jap animation called Megazone 23, Part 2. So there are 3 chapters to Megazone, as far as I know.
Okay.
Part 2, their character, having a beer, and it's a Heineken. It was a can of Heineken.
Yeah.
And the artwork on that can was exquisite. Now, this isn't just, hey, here's a can of Heineken, be sure to get that in the scene. But somebody had to actually, draw this, paint it, animate it, get it in there. There's a guy at the range, one of the main characters was at a target range, and he's having some mental exposition, some internal dialogue, while he's shooting his Magnum pistol. The artwork was so good, so detailed, that you could actually read the caliber in the rim of the shell casings when he dumps them out of the cylinder. I believe it was a Colt pistol that he was shooting. It's been a while since I've seen it. There were a lot of things. I'm not sure if they were in there to be product placement or if they were there to say, hey, look at the ultra detail that I drew in here.
It's like, what was that guy who drew Big Guy and Rusty?
Oh, the Big Guy and Rusty. That's a Frank Miller thing.
Jeff Darrow.
But Jeff Darrow did the art.
So he would do like all sorts of brands, and I don't think anybody was paying them. Frank Miller and Jeff Darrow to do that. It was Dark Horse, right?
I believe it was Dark Horse. The comic came out when I had stopped collecting. I saw this because it was on Saturday morning cartoons, and my son and I.
That amazed me because it's kind of weird. It's kind of a weird comic, and there's all weird oversized.
Yeah, it was
album size,
big sized. Yeah. Miller had done another book called Hard Boiled, and if I remember correctly, I think the first issues of Martha Washington were also outsized as comic format goes.
Yeah, I have some weird formatted thing. I've got those. I've got Red Rocket 7.
Oh yeah,
which is weird, and then Wrassle from Jeff Smith.
Did you get Big Numbers by Alan Moore?
I got Big Numbers from that was still in the 80s though.
Late 80s, or it was either like 1988, 89, or it was literally 1990.
Yeah,
but it was like right in there.
1990 is practically the 80s.
Do you remember Piranha Press? The imprint of DC that was their mature themes.
Yeah.
That wasn't Vertigo.
Before there was Vertigo, and
I think it was that they were mature themes and they were creator owned.
Yeah, and I used to get Beautiful Stories for Ugly Children.
Yes. Beautiful Stories for Ugly Children, and The Score, I think, was another one.
Oh, that sounds familiar. I can't remember what that one was about.
There were a bunch of them, and I tried them, and some of them were all right. Some of them just really didn't connect with me.
One year, Troy, at Christmas time, they had a Christmas story in Beautiful Stories. Do you remember Tiny Slimy Writhing Thing? This was a Christmas story taken from the first person perspective, I think. No, I think there was an omniscient narrator, but our protagonist was this little worm, this slimy worm that was from another dimension or something like that, and it was experiencing Christmas, and I decided, I remember this being a Christmas story that's a little bit weird and a little bit irreverent of religion because when I was 19 and then today I'm very irreverent of religion, and so I used to work for this. I used to work at Ocean Beach Elementary School, and I went and started reading this to kids, and then it got toward the end, and I'm like, oh, I forgot that there was some swear words and there were some adult themes, like right at the end, like in the last couple of pages. But luckily, I believe the way it worked was, oh, it's time for recess. Okay, see you later, kids. And then I gave them just a vague synopsis when they came back. Oh, here's what happens. We're not going to read any more of that. We can't read any more of that today.
Is that where you met Miss Bruner?
No, but you know what? That's Dune Murderous, Dune McKay of Dune Reads Goosebumps fame. By the way, go and check out Dune Reads Goosebumps on the iTunes or whatever if you can. He's coming back, and in fact, he's coming back here for the first time. He will be rejoining Comics Online for at least one weekend in person. He will be here in my house. So shout out to Dune. Hopefully Troy will be available as well. I would love to have them both on the show at the same time. But hey, getting Dune on will be a win. It's been a little while. I know Mike and I had him on the show about a year ago, just via Skype. But podcasting with him in person, and hopefully we'll do the audio one as well. I know there are people who are still subscribed and will be shocked and amazed and hopefully pleased when we come back to an audio version. But I'm enjoying doing the video thing, and so if you're enjoying this, if you've listened, if you've watched and or listened, you probably don't have to watch it. It's just a couple guys sitting on a couch, right? But play this in another tab, and you could be entertained, I would like to think.
Yeah.
But then let us know. Let us know what you would like to see different, what changes you would like, and we will do those things probably an hour and a half. See, hour and 31 minutes we're at right now.
Yeah.
And that is the as far as Comics Online is concerned. Most of our original couple of seasons were like the average was like an hour and 25 minutes. So we're running a little bit long, but not too bad. And we will see you again soon. Maybe next week we will do the best of 2017, and then when Dune gets here, we'll do a look ahead to 2018 because we've got a lot of stuff going on. Or maybe next time we'll talk Black Panther.
Yeah, there's a very good chance that I'm going this weekend. Kevin is probably going to.
I'm going to go Saturday morning. Troy's going to go Sunday.
Yeah.
And
then we're going to compare notes.
And we're going to try to maybe we'll find some black people to talk about it. Do you know any about black people, Troy?
I don't know one.
Damn it.
So yeah, lots going on there. While you're here at Comics Online, and of course I'm speaking to you in the future.
Right. But we're on the Geek Pop Culture Network, which is Comics Online led, but it's other people as well.
It's others as well. So now Flashback Comics is not yet a member of of this fantastic network. So,
but you should be.
Well, we should be. I have to talk to my video editor about seeing what we could do to connect, cross connect, etc.
Yeah, we want
These
to
are
go
questions that I don't have answers to.
Point in each direction, and we've got some other folks coming on board.
So what I was going to say is jump over to Flashback Comics here on YouTube and check out some of the Spotlight videos. There are a lot of Spotlight videos.
This man has got a lot.
And so in these things, they run an awful lot shorter.
Very short.
Generally not much more than 15 minutes.
Some even shorter than that.
Some shorter than that, yes. And I hit a lot of different topics, whether it be the history of the Guardians of the Galaxy or Spotlight.
Is that your top one, or is it Golden Age?
Right now, that one's the top, but I also do a series segments of the ages of comics: the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, the Copper Age, the Modern Age. There's also discussions about the science of superpowers, how Superman's powers work or don't work, how Magneto's powers work or don't work. There are in-store conversations. We're all, Kevin, myself, Nick, we're all standing around, Mark, when he was there, we were all standing around talking about various topics and moving from one topic to another, sometimes fluidly and sometimes very choppily, because the stream of consciousness is the stream of consciousness.
Five guys, Troy.
Yep, we had that. That was real. So yeah, definitely pop on over and visit us at Flashback Comics. Definitely also check out our Facebook page, ComicsOnline.com on Facebook, Flashback Comics on Facebook, and we have a lot to share. I put up a lot of content through the course of the week. And it's not all just specifically, yes, it's the store page, but it's not all geared towards selling the comics. It's really about telling you about the comics. And
it's informational.
Yeah, you know,
and it's topical because you're talking about things that are important right now. You're talking about right now you've got some Black History Month stuff. Where you're talking about not just Black Panther, which is super topical, but you're talking about other some milestone stuff.
Yeah, milestone comics. You remember Static, Icon, Hardware, Blood Syndicate, and one of my favorite Green Lanterns is John Stewart. A little spotlight on John Stewart. Some villain spotlights. We did M'Baku the Man-Ape again, tied to the Black Panther, but M'Baku the Man-Ape is an important figure in Marvel villain history, if you will.
Yeah.
I've tried to talk about companies that I've been talking about Lion Forge, Catalyst Prime.
Oh yeah.
That company has not only diversity among the characters, but diversity among the creators.
Totally. And if you want to, check out our interview. Just go back and you'll see some our interview with Lion Forge. Flex Alexander. Do you know Flex Alexander?
Not personally, but I want to get to know all of these people.
He's an actor, and he also wrote one of their earlier. I don't think he's still a writer with them, but he was like kind of their sports spokesperson or whatever for a while. And he's fun. Watch. It's a short interview from a while back.
There's a lot goes up, and I try to provide things that people will find entertaining, informative, occasionally even just funny, and periodically, my orange cat Lucy has decided to name herself the Flashback Kitty. So she likes to sit with me on Sundays and read comics with me. I read the comics, and she curls up in my lap. I read pages to her. I read her the expositions. I show her pictures, and there are pictures of these things actually happening. That cat takes her own selfies.
You've shown me this. It's amazing. Here's what I'm thinking. So, listeners and viewers, if you would like to see more Flashback Kitty on this channel right here, just let us know in the comments, and we will get Troy to do some shorts. Maybe do a 2 or 3 minute segment on his Sundays or Mondays while he's sitting there with his cat. All right, Lucy, here's what we're reading, Patsy Walker Hellcat or whatever it is he's reading. Anyway, he has a good time with it. So, like I say, join us on the Facebook and right here, hopefully, if all of this worked out well. Hopefully it did. I think we're streaming. We don't have anybody watching, but, it's YouTube. So I don't know what happens on YouTube. Facebook, it's quite easy to get people to watch. Anyway.
It's also earlier in the night when we do it on Facebook.
Yeah, but, what's up, West Coast? West Coast!
California, looking at you. Oregon, Washington State.
West Saida. I don't know what this means. Anyway, we're it's only 11. It's late. I've been feeling bad lately, Troy. I broke my ribs, and I've been last night. I think I had a fever. I woke up at 1 a.m. and just in bad shape. Anyway.
Well, Kevin, I've been experimenting with this new surgical procedure whereby I bond metal to your bones. And I think I've worked out the kink about interfering with the bone marrow creation process.
Yeah.
So why don't we just go ahead and we'll lay you down, open you up, and I'll start working on that side of the rib cage. I'll just get this. It's a hot liquid metal that goes in. It's a little bit uncomfortable right at first, but
after that I'll be unbreakable.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly how it's going to work.
All right, let's do it. I'm into this.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's the show for this week. This was Comics Online Podcast, Season 18, Episode 4, Star Trek Discovery, and obviously a whole lot more, jazz hands. So for Troy David Phillips, and for everything geek pop culture, I'm Kevin Gaussoin, and this is Comics Online.
Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper, bitches. I needed to have the outro song. I wish I had it on my phone. Oh, and at the end of Discovery, they play the outro song from original series.
Yeah.
That made me smile. So watch to the very end. Watch through the credits. It's beautiful. All right, see you next time. Love you. Bye. How do I do this? How do I stop? I can't stop.